it's in Southeast Asia, okay. But when it came out, even if highly questionable, a problem related to food, to human health, then the attention raised steadily. So unfortunately, until the children slaves in collecting cocoa are not a health problem for Europeans or for Americans, it's very difficult to let our consumers to get attentive to this problem. And indeed, it's a very related problem to what I'm trying to talk about today. Thank you for your computer that is working a lovely way to present. So when we use the word agromafia, of course, we use a combination of two words that in Italian are rooted, and are mafia and agriculture. Agriculture from ager in Latin, that is the field. And actually you see in these two images a way we used to depict. Sorry, I did not apologize in advance. After two native speakers, to have an Italian trying to speak English, okay, it's a downgrade, but I think you can forgive it, thinking with hope to the lunch that waits for us. And in any case, so these two pictures are considered to be quite representative, because it's mainly because of the oranges picking that the problem of slaves in this country raised to the public attention in the last 10 years. Actually, mafia runs a lot of the work under the corporals. We use this military name, corporal, to define the guy that collects the people that are able to work and deliver them to the station where they are going to work for the whole day. They are not necessarily immigrants. Last year, a young woman died under the sun in Apulia, picking grapes not picking actually, she was green pruning grapes that need to be selected, because when we go to the supermarket, we like to have grapes without any kind of flow, and when we buy Italia or Regina or the other table grapes. And so there is this huge work done under vines in the very sun of Apulia in August, under plastic film that protect from direct sun and grail. So it's absolutely a very severe job. This woman died because she was too much under the sun and dehydrated for the whole day, and there was nothing to do with her. The second picture, the lower one, you can see is this, I can't say in English properly because baraccopoli it's very Italian, but it's the amount of momentary houses used by mainly immigrants in the San Ferdinando plan in Calabria, where they gather close to Rosarno in order to go picking the oranges. These seasonal works have a very precise calendar in Italy. They work in Calabria and a little less in Sicily in winter, in order to pick the citruses, oranges, lemons, and so on, mandarin, even very high quality ones, even very high priced ones like bergamot that is used for perfume in the plan of Reggio Calabria. Then they move in the spring to Apulia and the other regions for the planting and the early picking of tomatoes. And then they move to the north for the picking of fruits. I come from a region in Piedmont that welcomes every year, in the last years, according to the contracts that have been signed, not less than 5,000 people in a local community that is about 100,000. So you can imagine the percentage of these people arriving. And all these immigrants are coming for picking the fruits, from blackberries up to the kiwis that are the last ones. So from the early days in June, we are starting now, until November in Piedmont. And then they come back, because at the end of November, oranges come again to maturation, and this is the job. Most of them in this country are people that move because they had a job, but after the crisis in 2008, they have been expelled, the first ones, the first line to be expelled from the factories, mechanic factory in central Italy, mainly in Emilia. Even the outbreak gave a coup to this movement, and they were forced to find new ways to survive and to send money back to their hometowns and homeland. So when we talk about agromafia, it's absolutely needed that we give a proper definition of it, the most proper we can, even if agromafia is continuously evolving. Currently, we talk about agromafia 3.0. Agromafia is actually something very rooted in the history of mafia. Mafia is in the countryside and was born in the countryside. It was a resistance movement, resistant to the political changes and to the even to the deployment of the countryside. It was resistant and useful for the large properties and the large estates, because mafia was able to maintain a condition of farmers, of small farmers, or not holders at all, that were pretty slave of the large estates. And so it was useful for that resistance to the modernization of the southern agriculture in Europe. But actually, agromafia interests the whole country in this country, and not actually only in this country. It affects all, because given the capacity of mafias to evolve, and when we refer to mafias, internationally, it's used to say Italian mafia, but actually there are very different movements in this country, and very different activities they are related with, being specialized. More or less every one of them are specialized into the drug trafficking. But the way they invest the money they get from the drug trafficking is very differentiated. And agriculture has become one of these ways, alongside operating logistics. Because actually, the great business in agromafia today is not to have the padrino selling you the fruit. This would be very easy to detect and very easy to stop. The problem is that in the food supply chain, you cannot know actually if that transport from point A to point B has been operated by someone that actually is not an actual worker of an economic system, but is a money launderer of the mafia. That's the business. Because when you get a lot of money from the drug, you can afford to waste a bit of it in order to launder the whole amount minus what you waste with a legal activity or apparently legal activity. So logistical and in general transport and other services related to trade are actually the way the mafia works. But actually, you have to start thinking to the phenomenon, in my opinion, taking in consideration that the key word is infiltration. Infiltration, because actually you don't buy your tomato from Don Vito Corleone. This is very unlikely, but it's very likely that the cheap tomato you're going to buy in that regular shop, very nice, because the quality is not bad. You know, mafia does not affect the quality of food, rarely affects the safety of food. And actually, only when it affects safety of food, it comes to our eyes. It's very famous, the case of the Camorra, the mafia family, the mafia organization in the nearby of Naples. There is a large literature about the differences with the so-called original mafia, that is the Sicilian one. Maybe you have seen the movie Gomorrah, when you see the truck that are led into a sink, graved into the middle of the fields of the Campania region, and then covered with ground, not just the waste over the truck, but even the trucks. You have an image of what we are talking about. Actually, there is a surface in Italy, province of this country, that has been interested with the illegal use of waste results as something that the industry of mafia have been working on. People that have been specialized in solving the problem of waste for industries of north of Italy, and not just Italy, on the land in this way. So engraving it under fields and letting vegetables growing over that, expecting that 2 meters ground can protect 2 meters of ground under over ground can protect the veggies you pick over there, or on the sea. So having old ship filled with this kind of waste led to precise points where the sea is 5,000 meter or 2,000 meter deep, and then sinking the ship very simply. But this is, let's say, the very visible phenomenon, that one that goes on TV, that allows movies to be shot, and it's not what is really affects the supply chain. Because what really affects the supply chain is not the black that is visible, is the gray. Assuming that the correct supply chain is the white one, we have a lot of shades of gray in between the level 1 and level 2. And those are the problem, because it's really impossible for the consumer to be aware of this. And so to ask for the consumer to react, it's very hard. And this is the first problem. So the really agro-mafia operates today in a way that is very hard to detect for the consumers, and even very hard to be contrasted by the authorities. Because evidently, if it's an activity that is totally legal in its appearance, even if it's funded with the money of drugs, it's harder to be detected and contrasted up to the moment it is destroyed. But then there is another problem. Do you see that is the non-appearance of an illegal supply chain and an illegal working in the supply chain. When we buy the veggies in the shop, when we buy the veggies at the corner of the street, we have barely, or we can have barely idea about how this product has been sourced. And even some certifications have shown to be not that effective in guaranteeing that it's free from any kind of slavery or other ways to let people work exceeding their capacities, or in damaging or even in risky conditions like under the sun for 15 hours. And that's the other problem. It's not easy to know how the cocoa beans are picked to make that bar we buy for our children. It's even less easy for fresh products because they last less on the market. Their traceability reduces the time they are available. If they are picked today in a field of Foggia, the veggies that I eat tomorrow, in these 2 days everything has to be tracked. And it's very hard to detect where and why someone has worked in an illegal condition. You know, it's easy when you have paper traces, big companies that have to trace every movement for their shareholders, not for this kind of purposes. But when it's a supply chain made of very small holders, made of people that work on the black market because they can't do it in land that are very far from being controlled by the officials, evidently things become a lot more harder to be detected. And secondarily, we have, I call them agromafia in France, because there are activities that are not necessarily related with mafia, but actually affect the system of food supply chain in this country, and not just in this country. Exploitation of the workers is not necessarily done by mafia. Mafia implies an association, okay? When we talk about mafia, it's always an association that has goals that are contrasting with the goals of the state or the goals of the authorities in general, maybe the municipality up to the state. But it takes an association. When a single guy exploits his workers in the fields without being into an association, it's not yet mafia. It's an individual criminal case, okay? His liability is for an individual behavior, and is not actually mafia, but we can consider it friend of mafia, because what he does individually is actually what is done on an someone providing services for you. You are not experiencing James Gandolfini coming to your shop and telling you what you have to do. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. The most of the activity they ask you to do is to collaborate to money laundering. And to collaborate doesn't ask anything to your conscience. May I build your new house? May I build the apartments you planned to realize in that city? I have a very good company. We work fast, we deliver in time, and we also provide with very good decoration. So, and you're told that. And our price per day is lower than any other competitor. Why should you decide for something different? Because you know they are not that honest, or because you have heard something about it, but they count on our values, as we will see. They count on our values. What does it mean? Lowers the price, better the bargain. That's the basic element. So thinking of mafia and agromafia as something forcing someone is medieval, is agromafia 1.0. Now we are in 3.0. Nothing more is made with guns until you decide to change your provider, of course. But everything is made under the appearance of contracts, deals. That, by the way, the last international ILO documents signed by many countries involved in the United Nations in order to counter slavery have pointed out that deals doesn't mean lack of slavery. And you know it perfectly, of course, because when you are in severe need, those children jumping on your van for $50 a year are not jumping on your van happy to have closed the deal between free people that with the personal consent decide for their future, looking at their own personal interests. Nothing like that, except we want to believe in fairy tales, okay? So money laundering is the big ally of agromafia, and not only under the appearance of mafia. Then food piracy. Agromafia is involved also in food piracy, that is, that waste. It's not a criminal case, it's not a fattispecie, as we used to say in Italian legal language, that clear. Agropiracy means the use of words and signs that refer to productions, mainly to high-quality production or perceived as high-quality production, that are sold and marketed on with outside the legal channel, outside the legal market. Because the companies that can that produce copies or that pirate the marks of quality products sometimes need the help to enter markets that are a bit resistant, and they can count on the help of Agromafia in this field. Because if you have to enter a market with something that looks like Parmigiano Reggiano but actually is not Parmigiano Reggiano, maybe that if you can count on someone very convincing in promoting and marketing your food, you can enter it more easily. So there is another possibility of connection for these people seeking for market-related activities, even if actually mafia funded. Then we have the problem of systemic pollution, that is a specialty of mafia. As I already anticipated, the way the mafia gets rid of waste is very fast, very effective, and very cheap for any industry that needs it. And it has been discovered, it has been judged, it has been condemned in tribunals and trials, but it's something going on. And the places where the ship in the sea that have been sinking by 'Ndrangheta and mafia, filled with barrels of waste, even very poisonous ones, are even known today. But the problem is that trying to recover may be even worse because of the risk of the break of the very weak protection that has been used. It's heavy, and when you have a dispersion of these kinds of substances in the sea, then you have a result that is even worse than let it there. But of course, it's not something we can afford, because the streams in the sea and the corrosion that goes on in the sea is just a matter of time. It's not related to mafia, but as you have probably heard in the last days, because an article was released a week ago, the most important nuclear waste depot of the United States in the Solomon Island in the Pacific is corrosing now, and the risk of pollution in the atmosphere of nuclear waste that is due to the nuclear experiments in the 50s is very high within the next years. Then think that this thing has been done, that dome made of concrete has been done for preserving waste. In these cases, we have people that are going to make a grave for trucks filled with waste and then covering it with just the soil that they have moved. And so there is not a single layer to protect where we live, so over the soil and what is underground. Second aspect, that is as well important, it's yours. Sorry. Second aspect that sounds less impressive, because you know when it goes to the diffuse pollution, we are bombed with a lot of information about it, and we always think that massive wasting and massive pollution are the problem. But actually, every agro business on field managed by mafia, you cannot expect that they will respect the limits for the use of chemicals, the limit for the use of herbicides, pesticides, and every substance that is needed. Of course, if they have the possibility to produce and to manage some land as the result of their traffic, they will not take care of these regulations. They don't care of any other regulation. It's very unlikely that they start to get ecological when it's the moment of using pesticides, if until the moment before they had no problem with homicides or drug trafficking, you know. Then frauds that are another big friend of Agromafia, because Agromafia is involved in a lot of frauds in terms of goods that are sold without the mandatory requirements and out of the legal market. And at the end of the day, the risk of that all of us are subject. So the weapons of mass destruction, that actually is what is used in order to let us see in another direction. Despite the fact that we are informed about the bad condition of people exploited in Calabria or in Apulia or in Piedmont to picking fruit, it's very unlikely that the consumers ask for real change. There is not a real movement for transparent labeling, for instance, about that. We have transparent labeling and many certification companies involved in guaranteeing that what we are going to eat is vegan, but not that it has been picked or processed by people over-exploited. Nothing similar. Nothing similar in my knowledge. I mean, I'm an organic producer. I know the activity of the certifiers that are 8 in this country recognized by the Minister. I don't have any memory of a trademark or a protocol to guarantee that the supply chain has not involved any overexploited people. Because health and pollution have entered a bit in this scale, health at the first point, the first position. Pollution a little less, but you know, Greta is getting her toll day by day, luckily. But other humans are not my problem. Slavery is no more. We use no more chain. We cut no more feet of people trying to escape the fields. So slavery is over. Slavery is from the past. And we hide everything behind the great distraction mean that is deals. Deals and contract. Yesterday, the Supreme Court of this country rejected the position of a court in southern Italy that have submitted a question that was, can prostitution be a free deal? We assume yes. We assume that people, for the sake of their career or for the will of having advantages that are legally permitted, could decide to barter their corp, their body, in exchange of the advantages. And this sounds like a deal. And the court from Bari asked the Supreme Court about that. You know, 20 years ago, no court would have asked such a thing in this country. In this country, since 1958, prostitution is not a crime because we don't want to jail women so desperate, women and less men, so desperate that they sell their body. That's the goal of not having prostitution as a crime. Not the goal of saying people, okay, go around, offer to the best payer your body. No, because the act of profiting of prostitution is still a crime. That one, okay? Until yesterday, there was no court in this country with a doubt about the fact that you cannot consider prostitution making a deal. But yesterday, it took the intervention of the Constitutional Court that said, by the way, it cannot be a deal because a woman forced to become a prostitute is never full free. Okay? And but another time, the answer is deal-based. It's deal-based because when you say the woman that sells her body is not totally free, you are using a contractual argument in order to answer no. You are not saying because you are not allowed to sell your body, because it's contrary to the public order. No, you are saying a contractual argument. That is, when you are not actually free, and so you are in need, then your will is not free, and the contract is born with a weak leg. And that weak leg allows you to put it into nothing. But it's a pure contractual logic. This is distraction. We have to recover a totally different vision of it. Because if we don't change the vision of the relation between humans and the relation between us and the planet, then for the mafia is, you know, the flatland west in the United States in 1880. The land you can cover is yours. If we reduce everything to deals, then we are lost. No way. And why do we reduce everything to deals? Because, and there are good books by Fritjof Capra, Ugo Mattei, and many other pundits of physics, ecology, and law that have pointed out that since 35 years, the unique way of developing this world under the point of view of progress of humans is perceived to be capitalism based on deals. And they must be the only way to regulate interpersonal relationship. The problem is that if you have deal and alongside a strong vision of the person that protects the person from the abuse of deals, for a Romanist as I am, it's very common to recall the fact that you can use the law against the law. It sounds a contradiction, but it's not. When you make a deal with a woman that is so poor that she has to sell herself in order to feed her children, or you travel to Thailand because you like very young women to do that, you are telling yourself, I offered them some money. You are justifying your act into your brain by saying, you know, at the end of the day, it's kind of deal. And this is because if everything is reduced to the vision of deals, the relation between humans are reduced to the vision of deals, then everything can be put in a deal. If I get the free consent of the other part, or I say it's a free consent, and I'm able to say it in a so convincing way that I get convinced it's a free consent, it's done. Do you understand what I mean? So the great weapon of mass destruction is actually the idea that everything can be dealized. Once we were for idealizing, now we are for dealizing. And the problem is severe. So, just to resume a few things in a line, in a chart, when we refer to food, we have to remember that there is always a price to pay. So very low price means that there is someone else paying. Maybe the planet, because all the waste or all the pesticides that have been used to have that apple at that price with that appearance, not quality, but appearance of quality, took a toll to the soil, or took a toll to people forced to pick it. It was nice what you said. Raising 5 times the pay for the coconut pickers would mean 4 cents at the moment of the retail price of the chocolate bar. I agree with you. The problem is that who evaluates the results of the CEO that accepts to increase 5 times the payment for the cocoa pickers and guarantees that loss, that is very small one, because it's assumed that if you want to keep your market share, these 4 cents will be absorbed. So actually it's a loss. But those shareholders worldwide that gather once a year to get the results of the company and their quota for the company are not that interested in your goals under other points of view. And this is another time because the vision of them is purely deal. I invested my money. I want the maximum result from my money. I'm not interested in anything else. Why I'm not interested? Because I'm not educated to appreciate there are other values outside the deals values. Second, Agromafia counts on our values. That is what I was saying. They count on the fact that lower the price, better the bargain. At the end of the day, we are so attracted by that. We are paying now, in this country, now we spend 17% of our revenue for having food. And then we complain about this metabolic disease. We spend 83% for anything else, from trousers to cinema, and mostly for the phones and the electronic devices. We spend 17% for what determines our health and our capacity of aging well. And then we complain. It's incredible. I mean, if we were paying 60% for food, and then food was harming a bit our health, I think it would be understandable that we complain and we ask for better standards. But we pay low money for food, and we are paying every year less. In America, it's about 10%. And this is the trend. Paying more, less and less and less. This is why that 4%, that 4 cents for the choco bar count a lot. Because people are not willing to pay for food what food deserves, for the value chain that is behind it, and for the health, at the end of the day, for the health that is embedded into food. There is an old phrase of the founder of my university that maybe you know, is Carlo Petrini, that I read it 20 years ago and I found it brilliant. Why should I be spending 20 euros, at the time not yet euros, it was 20.000 lire, for Armani boxers, and not spend 20 euros for a good Parma ham made from a pig that has been raised free and not into an industrial farm and seasoned without using preservatives? At the end of the day, the ham will become part of me. Armani boxers, even if fine, will not become part of me. So that's something to remember. Then, gray is not white. So when we buy something that sounds to be everything okay, but we have some doubt, we are probably collaborating to Agromafia. Okay, we have received a very good, we have this very good occasion this week with this anacardi, with avocados from Sicily at an amazing price, 50% less than last week. What's behind it? I mean, avocados is the thing to have all around the Western world in these years. So how can you have this kind of drop in the prices? When we see something that is gray, even if it's a very marble gray that sounds to be close to white, it's important that we keep our attention high and we do not collaborate. And then we have good examples to help, because if we don't help the good examples don't grow. I will give you a figure in my last slide about that. So I want you to when possible, appreciate a short video. I don't know, does it transmit the sound also, the HDMI? Okay, not a problem. This video, I will share the slides, so if you want to go through it, is a video released by another director 5 years ago. It's called La Terra che Connette, the soil that connects people, soil in this case. It's a shooting in, it's a footage released from the situation in my hometown, where these 5,000 migrants arrive every year now to pick fruit. The district I come from is 20,000 hectares, okay? 10 years ago, they were 10,000 hectares. When I was in the city council of this city 10 years ago, for the first time, 8 people arrived to the local train station. And with a couple of tents, waited to find a job and pick some fruit. And everybody in the town was about, you know, these people came for picking fruit from Africa. It's so strange. The year after, they were 20. The year after, again, they were 100. In 2014, they were 800. 800, the ones that created a tent, a camp in an area close to the city, where every day the farmers of the area could come and hire people, living in conditions not far from San Ferdinando in Calabria, actually, even if it was in Piedmont. And actually, nobody thinks of Piedmont in this country when it's about exploitation. And they were the top of the iceberg. Because for 800 that were there, 3,000 were already working in the farms and dusted in the farms. Because most of the farmers, if they have the worker with them 3 months, find a way to leave them a room or some other way to live in the farm. Because if they have to go by bike 20 kilometers before and after, they work less. That very basically, it's a matter of economy. Last year, the municipality created an official camp with a structure using an old using old military barracks to host people, to create toilets and a station to cook and so on. For 460 people, this was available, but it was not yet enough because 200 more made their tent in a camp. Well, last year, 5,200 people worked in the area. This year, we expect them to be 6,000. And the reason is that the agricultural exploitation enlarged, and that's an area where it's still profitable. And people in the countryside the owners, the estate owners are older and older year by year. So migrants are absolutely needed. I don't say that because I'm an activist. I say that because I moderated meetings with the local trade unions that say without them, we're lost. When the peaches are to be picked, you need to pick them in 2 days, not in 2 weeks or in a month, because they cannot wait. So if you have time and you can resist the fact that the video is shot in Italian, Piedmontese, and French, take a look. The images are amazing, okay? And show exactly the point between the black and white. Because these people arrive for working. They are to be hired for jobs, real jobs, in a legal activity that is producing fruit. And no company in the area, they are all smallholders, the farmers, and there is no mafia at all in the ownership of the land. So these people come from doing it legally. But then, if they don't find a job the first day, the second day, they start looking for someone able to find a job. And what was white becomes black in a few. And someone starts getting the services of these corporals, and the whole system gets rotten. This year, we have had the first criminal case for corporal activity in Saluzzo area. We're talking about 2 people and probably 20 other people involved. On 5,200 is not that much. But you know, you don't need that much yeast to let the bread levitate. So better not to be less attentive. So finally, I want to give you some figures and hopes, possibly. In 2018, total revenue of Agromafia in Italy has been 25.4 billions. That means plus 12% on 2018. We don't see that kind of GDP growth since the 60s under the legal point of view, but illegally, it's a steady growth. In the whole EU, there are 3,600 criminal associations with a criminal revenue about 670 billion euro. And this is a research released by CGL Fly, that is the most important trade union of this country. And on this 670 billions, 250 are made by Italian associations. Through the last 30 years, almost 25,000 estates have been confiscated to mafia in Italy. Confiscated means that the boss has been caught, the estate that was belonging to him has been confiscated to the state, and the state has given these estates to cooperatives and to local farmers that were able to manage them in order to let them use legally, to have them producing in a legal frame, within a legal frame. Unfortunately, 93% of them has gone to bankruptcy. And you know why has gone to bankruptcy? Because this kind of company need help. If they don't find the illegal help they had before, so the money pumped in from the drug trafficking, they need the legal help. That is people willing to pay the right price for food. But if you look for extra virgin olive oil, 100% Italian, at 2.5 euro the liter in the supermarket, so with not at the farm, but in the supermarket, of course you are not willing to give any legal help to this good. You are saving other 20 cents for your next iPhone. You are probably harming your health because what you are buying is unlikely to be extra virgin oil. In the best case, it's not extra virgin. I mean, under a proper analysis, it has some defects, and this is olive oil, but not extra virgin, so it's chemically extracted from olives. In the worst case, is other kind of oil added with chlorophyll to sound green, and some solid elements to sound not filtered, that means quality to people, and you are buying something that on one side harms your health, and on the other side leads to this 93% failure of legally managed former mafia estates in the country. So I think there is a lot to do for all of us, actually, to raise consciousness and to do what we can in this field. Thank you very much for your time.
So we'll give 15 minutes for questions.
50 is an amount, oh, you said 15.
Healthily, safely, picked food.
Fantastic. Yeah. We want to see the people that picked it, you know. Please. Yeah, please.
What do you think is the difference between the mafia-based cost-cutting?
Sorry, you're right.
What do you think is the difference between the mafia-based cost-cutting model that you've described and, say, the Walmart-based cost-cutting model? Is there any real difference in terms of what we as consumers should be concerned about, particularly our health, which is a great point that you've made?
Thank you for asking. I see no differences under the economic point of view. So if you describe the scheme under the economic point of view, you have no differences that you can appreciate. There is a different qualification under the legal point of view, as the legal system is always servant to the power, and actually the system that exploits workers legally can be very close to the system that exploits workers illegally. The qualification refers normally to the subjects. So if I'm a good European entrepreneur and let my shirts be made in a building in Bangladesh, you told about Bangladesh before, and then this building, the Reza Palace, tumbles down, and 3,000 of these people die completely there because there was not a single way to protect them. The building was not, in Europe, would not have been a building you could use. There was no exit for the people. There was nothing legal in it. But for the legal separation of me and my son company in that country and other multiple companies that depend on that one, not a single European CEO have been charged for anything for the Reza building falling. Well, I think they are not different under the moral point of view to any mafia boss exploiting people to pick the oranges in the piana of Gioia Tauro. Absolutely no difference. The only difference, what differentiates them in treatment is the qualification, the subjective qualification of the people. Again, it's because we consider the mafia association something criminal that affects the business that they can make. But we pay too low attention to the content of the industrial relations and too much attention to the reputation of the protagonist of the relation. This is what harms our proper appreciation of the way we plunder, the way, I mean, the Western people used to plunder the planet largely. Of course, dressing it like deals and contracts that have been absolutely legally made. And sometimes asking for the enforcement of this to a level that is offensive, using the International Monetary Fund and the International and the World Bank of Investment to promote the system, to tell people, to tell the states, the government of Africa, you were asked before, if you don't go on reform and you don't allow the selling of common land to people even from abroad at prices that have been that have to be decided by the free market, I will not give you any investment. I will not allow any investment in your land. So we are promoting the plundering system, and we are calling it good just because we have approved the people that are the protagonists of it, in my opinion. Sorry, there are many hands. I don't want to.
Maybe 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, one. Yeah. Choose.
With regards to food produced in Italy and Agromafia, etc., can you just point out a little bit, because I mentioned it yesterday, I think there's a major role played by the great distribution chains, but people are hardly aware of that, and they're the ones that are pushing the prices down continuously, making it harder for the producers to survive and for there to be any money for the people who are doing the work. But they always come out clean, but these mass distribution chains are just as guilty as the mafia in playing the same game from different sides.
I thank you because you also gave the answer. I totally agree, and the problem is as bigger as the share of great distribution is bigger in the country. When this mechanism will arrive Britain in Europe, assuming that they are not yet already there, where we have about 80% of the distribution of food that is in the end of great distribution, they can do enormous job. They can do enormous deals and get revenues unprecedented. In this country where we have the distribution of food that is less than 50% in the end of great the organized great distribution, it's still a lower market for them. I agree with you, because the problem is that the buyers of the organized great distribution always seek for the lower price, and the Schirm is in German, a separation between them and the mafia. They just need a separation. They don't care for the exclusion of mafia from the process. They just want a separation between the mafia intervention and them. So they will never buy from mafia. But if mafia is able to find someone that at the end of the day washes the documents of the goods they are selling, it's fine. There is a lack of consciousness because there is a lack of pressure from the consumers in this country on the great organized distribution in order to have this change, in order to ask them for having a full legal supply chain. But absolutely, what you pointed out is absolutely the same point I would express. Sorry for having added things that did not provide new details.
Yeah, thank you so much for highlighting about Agromafia. I noted that there seemed to be some sort of Pyrrhic victory with so many businesses that the government is trying to save, but which ultimately goes back again into bankruptcy. I don't know if you have any suggestions on what might happen or might be done to lessen the rate of bankruptcy again for such businesses that are trying to be saved.
Could I add just something?
Yeah,
My question was on that. It was,
do you think that this failure of the businesses which were created after the government confiscated mafia land, that failure is in some way deliberate, and that there are forces who are actively promoting that failure?
Just to say, Michele, I think we'll have to take those as the last questions before lunch.
Okay. Yeah, thank you for asking about this point, and thank you for your presumption that is correct. Actually, these companies will need the biggest legal help from the whole market, because locally they are deliberately not helped. Because to buy from the confiscated land to mafia, to buy the oil or the olives or the wine is not a good affair in those territories. And that's why it's the whole market that can skip the problem. Libera, that is one of the largest associations to recover from mafia in this country, manages a few of these estates with some success. So they can cope with the costs. Okay, this is the success. They can cope with the costs, not making profits. But why can they do that? Because Libera is so well known at the national level that when they market their oil or their wine, people recognize the product. Have in mind Don Ciotti, that is the founder of the association, and this provides an help from the whole market. The small cooperatives of Sicilian people that have started working on the Corleone land that have been confiscated to the Riina family have found no help locally, have no name. When they arrive on the market, they are one of the label among the other labels. They are shrinked by the requests of the GDO, or the Great Organized Distribution buyers, and at the end of the day, they cannot survive. So there is a combination. There is a cooperation of the local deliberate non-help, because nobody wants to have problems with the families, yeah, and the lack of knowledge about this process at the national level, where I can buy whatever I want coming from one of these cooperatives, but actually I'm not informed. They cannot market it efficiently, and the result is in this failure that is absolutely painful for all of us. It should be. Thank you very much.